Good day and welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell and I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs and I've been in business for the past 25 years. Okay, put on your seatbelts, folks. Today's going to be kind of fun because I asked on a social media platform what people want to talk about, and there was a bunch. Well, there was 6 questions here, so I'm just going to nail all 6 of them. So, give the briefest answers I can give on the topics, and so it's going to be some fun. So let's see what we got. I'll read the questions first, and I'll go into depth with them. Barbara Mann asks, "Are probiotics necessary?" Tara asks, "How to stop boredom snacking?" Marianne asks, "Is jogging more beneficial than walking?" Randy asks, "How to get motivated?" Christina asks, "What about exercise for mental health?" And finally, Zach asks, "What's more durable for high-intensity metabolic workout, Crocs or cowboy boots?" Now that one's going to be interesting. So let's go in order here. So Barbara's question, are probiotics necessary? Boy, that's a tough one there, because you're just bound and determined to piss somebody off with the answer. And you know, the whole idea behind this podcast is the method to the madness, and getting real and being honest. So here's the honest answer I've got for you, Barbara. I would say necessary, no. And I would put all supplements into that category, although I'm not anti-supplement because I take some. But your key word there is necessary, and the answer to that is no for probiotics and or any supplements. Now, probiotics are a little bit different because basically it's trying to keep your gut health happy, and technically if we're eating the right diet, right foods, right combinations of foods, those aren't necessary. The argument with those and any other supplements is, we're not eating the right foods, especially like with supplements. We're typically not eating as much whole foods as possible, so we're not getting certain vitamins and nutrients we used to get when we ate more from the earth. And that's the argument. Now the counter argument to that is I keep a MyFitnessPal and I track food and I look up nutrients, and even when I'm not taking my supplements, and I don't take very many, but I take the B's, the C's, the D's, mostly in a multi-form. Even when I'm not taking those in a supplement, I notice that I'm hitting the RDA on all of those. There's no nutrients I'm ever deficient in. If anything, I tend to run a little bit high in sodium and potassium because of an electrolyte drink that I'll take, but never low. I've never seen a deficiency, and I pretty much don't eat meat, and even my B12s are at least normal, if not higher, and when I take a supplement, everything's off the charts. So with that, the short answer, or not so short answer, is no. I mean, again, if you have gastrointestinal problems and your doctor thinks it's critical for you, they really can't hurt either, although they can be a little expensive. And some people are so into them, I get it. But necessary, no. I think that we all need to find a way to eat the best way for us. And I think typically when we really behave, like when we're really doing what's best for our health, the majority of these stomach problems and other things clear up. A final thing on gut health is, it's the argument is it what you're eating or what's eating you? And I'm a big proponent of gut health is much more related to anxiety and stress, although I'm definitely not singling out anybody's question on that. It's just in general, if a friend of mine who's a physician asked somebody one day at the gym, he said, so if you have irritable bowel syndrome, do you think you're better off going to a gastroenterologist or a psychiatrist? And the person said, well, I would guess psychology area. And that was this physician's opinion too. So a lot of times gut health is related to how we think. So the answer to that is ding, ding, ding. No, not necessary, Miss Barb. Doesn't hurt either unless it's starting to get expensive. All right. Next question from Tara. How to stop boredom snacking? Well, you stop by stopping. But in all seriousness, that's, it's hard to do. I mean, so you just hit the nail on the head, boredom snacking. What are we going to do when we're bored? My mom, God rest her soul, and I honestly mean that, I miss her every day, used to say to me all the time, an idle mind is the devil's playground, and she knew when I was a kid, like when things weren't going well, like if I was getting into trouble or something, I was bored, and then put on top of it, I have a tendency towards ADD. My brain's always going, so man, so what do we do when we're bored? I mean, that's the bottom line. First off is to understand that it's normal and natural. And secondly, it's important to understand that it's counterproductive. Because when we start boredom snacking, we're typically not grabbing healthy foods, and we're typically then setting ourselves up to put on a couple pounds and then not feel as good about ourselves. But what do we do when we're bored? We typically eat, some people drink, some people smoke. Some people will over-exercise, some people get on social media, some people get on computers. Most of the time we pick pretty unhealthy things to do when we're bored. So, again, it kind of gets back to the psychological side, just like the probiotics do. And that is, how do you prevent from getting bored to begin with? And that's always a challenge for me. I always need to have different things going on, like goals and stuff. I always work to find something to do productive that really engages me. And that's the real answer, is try to get engaged in things. Try to really focus in on what's important when you're getting bored. Try not to get there to begin with. And then from a nutritionist standpoint, really try to just delay the gratification. That's something I talk about with my weight loss clients all the time. Never say never. Instead, just delay the gratification. Say, I'm freaking bored right now, and I'm going to go out there and annihilate that bag of rice cakes, because the rice cakes, and they're healthy, and they're made with that cheddar cheese crap that's fake, you know what I mean? So they got to be healthier than Doritos, and and the truth is barely. But I'm just going to go hammer that bag, even though I just said I'm going to have 2. I'm going to eat them all. Well, I'll leave 3 or 4. That way I don't feel like I ate the bag. Guilty, been there. The bottom line is you just say to yourself, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to find something to do with my time. And like anything, it passes. It's really true. Whether it be boredom or, different emotions like sadness, whatever, it just passes. So tell yourself, I'm just bored. Acknowledge it. I'm bored. And I'm not going to do that because it's not going to help anything right now. So hopefully that helps, Tara. And, like anything, we strengthen that habit by not doing it, and then it gets easier next time. And I think you probably already knew this, but it's always good to hear it again. Marianne, my good friend, is jogging more beneficial than walking? The short answer is no, and then yes, and then no, and then yes. So here's the deal, and this used to really bother people because they just don't believe you, and it irritates an exercise physiologist when people don't believe you. But I even put it in my book, and one of the first things one of my clients challenged me on was this notion that a mile is a mile is a mile. Well, guess what? A mile is a mile is a mile, okay? When it comes to expending energy, if you walk a mile slow or if you sprint a mile fast, you're burning the same amount of calories minus or plus 10%. Fact, okay? 10% wiggle room. Science has proven it over and over and over. So, oftentimes when I tell some of my would-be endurance athletes, meaning the people who are just getting into doing different kinds of running and stuff, I'll say, just make sure you get in the miles. Like, Well, my leg bothers me. I can't run the 4 miles. Okay, walk it. Get it done. Process goals, in my opinion, are more important than outcome goals. We should always have outcome goals, I believe. For example, being able to run a 5K in a certain time, weighing a certain weight, whatever. Outcome goals are important, but process goals, what I'm going to do to get there, needs to be what stays right in the center of your attention. The general manager of the Rams, I really respected him when I heard him on a podcast. He said, we keep the main thing, which means we have those process goals out in front of us all the time, which means that we don't take our eye off of it. Whatever your job is, do it to the best of your ability. So when it gets back to the mileage thing, do the miles. If your plan says 3 miles, do the miles. Don't worry about how fast. If you're hurt, if you're injured, walk them. And I'm talking about little aches and pains injuries people get, not the serious ones. But the answer to the question is, it's basically the same. Now, if your goal is to improve your cardiorespiratory endurance, like you want to go faster or you want to be able to hold a faster time for a longer period of time, then increasing the intensity is more beneficial. In other words, once you reach a certain VO2 max, it's only going to be improved by higher intensity. So walking for somebody with a really high VO2 max is not going to improve their cardiorespiratory. It's not going to lower it either, but they will at the end of the day burn the same amount of calories. So Marianne, ultimately, it depends on your ultimate goal, and I think you're asking from a standpoint of just general health and activity. Then the answer to that is absolutely no. Jogging is not superior. Just walk, do what you're going to do, put in the miles no matter what. If your goal, again, is to improve performance, then jogging is going to become more imperative, or running, but both are great. And as a person who enjoys running, I also enjoy walking. I walk every day. There's no doubt about it. I walk either a lot or I walk a little, but I walk every day. And then I run probably 3 times a week. But great question. And remember, a mile is a mile. My good buddy Randy, how to get motivated. I was thinking about these questions this morning because I really enjoy these podcasts. I enjoy the heck out of it. This is really what I like to do, man. I like talking fitness, and I like, using Randy's word, trying to help people get motivated, which can be so freaking frustrating from our end. So I enjoy these, and I enjoy the questions. And I was thinking about his because, it's probably the most frustrating part for a trainer. So let me try to explain. So for those that know me, know that, and why do I even start to say that? Because I'm going to say it anyway. So here we go. I got my first degree in psychology at UCF, and that's what I thought I was going to go into. So I got my BS in psychology, which is very appropriate because I was very good at BSing long before I got it. And, after working in the psychology field, which I absolutely think I still work in, I realized I wanted to tilt a little more towards exercise. So I went back and got my master's degree in exercise physiology, but I use both all the time. I remember one of my courses at UCF when I was still in psychology was motivation. And my teacher's name was Dr. Fisher, and he's one of my favorites. Like, he taught in the social psychology courses, so human motivation, social psychology, and a couple others, but he was one of my favorites because he was just like super cool and made class fun. My very first day of motivation class, it literally was a class in motivation, which I thought was perfect, especially knowing I was in the fitness, health, and sports. So I walk into the class, and I already had him before. He had written on the board, and gosh, it was probably still a chalkboard back then. I don't know, probably, I'm guessing. Anyway, it said, "You can't motivate anybody. Go home. You just got your grade." And I'm like, oh, interesting. This is going to be fun. Right off the bat, he's trying to, rattle our cages, and he did. And, we went into, obviously the first class then became explaining what he meant, but ultimately it came down to, you cannot motivate somebody else. So I think a lot of people now know that, like anybody that's ever worked in addictions or has had an addiction or has known people with addictions know that you can't do it for them, that a person that has to recover from alcoholism or drug addiction or whatever kind of addiction has to do it on their own, has to want it on their own. There's no way to motivate them into doing so. And typically their motivation comes from their activity hurts more by doing it than not doing it. And when they reach that point, they decide to stop. So Randy, the answer is we can't motivate anybody, but that's not what you asked. You asked, how do you find motivation? So the answer to that is it has to be worth it. And when I started out this question on motivation, I said how frustrating it is for trainers is because we see people with ability, everybody's got ability and talent to an extent, right? But we see people who can be doing so much better, they can finally get fit. They can finally get well, they can do it. There's really nothing wrong with them except for their attitude and their stinking thinking and their complaining and there's really nothing wrong with them, but they don't reach their fitness goals because they just don't make it a priority, And the only thing we can do as trainers, which might help the people asking questions, is be consistent as hell as far as what the way is to getting to where they want to be, and being consistent on that the results are going to be worth it, and that the only way people can find that out is to find that out. There was this funny cartoon I cut out a while back, and basically it said it was this guy who was overweight with this big beer belly hanging over his tighty-whitey underpants, and he was looking at his doctor, and he says, "Doc, I don't have time to exercise." And the doc says, "Well, okay, do you have time to be dead?" I mean, it was funny because, the reality is the reason why people don't get motivated to exercise is because out of sight, out of mind. Because their behavior choices aren't going to affect them, they think, and it's probably true for a long time, but they are going to affect them, but they don't see it. They don't see it. There's this podcast I listened to, and the guy was talking about the difference between COVID and obesity. So everybody got so freaking motivated, one side or the other, but everybody got motivated on the subject of COVID, and essentially, it came down to, I don't want to get it. So I'm going to wear my mask, I'm going to get my vaccine, I'm going to stay away from people, I'm going to, hide, I'm going to do all these things, right? Why? Because if you got COVID, you're going to get it right then and there. And it was scary, and I had it. It was nothing to fool with. I'm not saying that preparation wasn't a good idea. But nobody takes that same kind of mindset with obesity. Even though obesity kills far more millions per year. And I'm not saying one is worse than the other. From a scientific standpoint, there's no question that obesity kills more than anything because it leads to heart disease, which is the number one cause of death in the world. So, there's no question about that. But I'm not trying to say, because everybody loves to fight. Oh, he said, COVID isn't, anything to fear. Bullshit, I had it. It is. My point is that if we all took the same motivation, the same warning signs from obesity that we put to COVID, we would be in such a better physical state as a nation. But the difference is it happens down the road. And what drives me nuts, okay, so Randy opened up a can of worms. So what drives me nuts is, I've been working in this industry a long time, and we've always heard, as a kid, then a young man, adult, now middle-ager, everybody's ragging on the kids, right? Well, they just can't see down the road. They just can't do this. They do this. They do that. Talking about the kids, talking about the teens, talking about whatever. And a lot of people I hear doing this are school teachers. Okay, school teachers I've had or have as clients, they just do this, they just do that. And what drives me nuts is, like, and I may be in the minority here, but I'm just going by what I see. The kids are actually so much more closer to like being honest with themselves than the adults I know. So the adults that always complain about the teenagers not being able to see down the road and they're wasting their lives by doing this and this and not going to college or, smoking weed behind a tree, all these things that we've always heard that these poor bad kids are doing, right? Are these same frickin' adults that go get their frappuccinos, go overeat, go to McDonald's, stop at Burger King on the way home, make all these really, really, really bad choices because they're not willing to, have the finger pointed at them. Well, I don't know if they are or not. It doesn't seem like they are. And say, hey, you're doing the same thing you accuse these kids of doing. When you say, oh, one day they'll wish they didn't, waste a year of their life, traveling Europe, drinking beer when they should be a freshman in college. Oh, they're gonna pay the price for that. It's like, well, you know what? We sit back and go, one day you're gonna go to the doctor and he's gonna tell you that your blood glucose levels is no longer under 125 and you now have diabetes. It's been warning you for a while and your gut has continued to increase now an inch every year, and now your blood sugar is 170 and he's going to be recommending insulin. So we tried to warn you, and just like you say to that teenager, you'll see one day. Well, that's what we all see. So Randy and everybody else, looking for motivation, and the Randy I know has motivation. So it's just a good question in general, so when I say that, I'm not pointing the finger by any means. People have to understand the freaking importance of it. 68% of the American population is either obese or overweight. 68%. And guess what? The number one correlation to heart disease is obesity. So heart disease is the number one killer, and obesity is the number one correlation. 68% of the American population are there. I don't know. Why isn't that motivating enough? It's like, yeah, doctors, they catch the blame and a lot for doing this, doing that, over-prescribing. The reality is it's not the freaking doctor's job to get you lower in your weight. You know what to do, or to get you stronger. 80% of the people 80% of the population, over 70, the cause of death is from a fall. 80%. Rob, why are you throwing that out in the middle of your obesity rant? Well, because there's another one that we can partially prevent. Because working on your ADLs and getting stronger is absolutely critical. But too many people think, oh, this bothers my knee when I do this, this hurts my elbow, this does this. And then I have the polar opposite from some of my seniors who, they'll come in with their elbows so freaking swollen, that it looks like my leg is on their arm. Hey, Jerry, does your elbow bother you, buddy? No, it's good, Cappy. No, it's good, Cappy. Think, well, that's not smart. I don't know. Really? The dude's in his 80s, moving around, lifting weights. The bottom line is there's probably a middle ground, but the guy who's willing to kind of deal with a few aches and pains here or there because he wants to stay active and he doesn't want to live his life in fear is probably the dude that's going to be able to do all the stuff he wants to do. One of my oldest clients, and I mean this in both ways, she's been with me the longest and she's 97. I love her to death, Gina Millar. She's had aches and pains since I've known her, so have I. But you know what? She always freaking works out and always says, well, this can bother me a little bit because I know ultimately I need to stay active. Bingo! And then you get people that'll call in sick because, they got a paper cut. So the answer to the question is, Randy, motivation has to be found. It has to be worth it. It has to be worth it. And those two things are the two biggest things, in my opinion, that we're battling in this country, which is sedentary lifestyle and obesity. And both of them can be freaking prevented. That's the thing. It's like, it's the one thing you can do every day you have 100% control over, is to get in the best condition you can be in for you. You have 100% control. And all you have to do is exercise, right? All you have to do is exercise. You know, the American College of Sports Medicine states that we need to get in a minimum of 150 minutes a week of endurance activity to get minimal benefits. That's 30 minutes 5 times a week. I would venture to guess only 20% of our country does that. Why? Because they don't have time, silly. No, they just don't want to. They just don't want it bad enough. There's nothing I can do. The only thing I can do as a trainer on that is be consistent. That's all I can do. And then appreciate the hell out of the people that want to get better. You know, appreciate the hell out of them, and then barely deal with the people who don't, and just give them the truth. Honest answer. There you go. All right. Speaking of which, mental health. Christina asks, where does exercise fall in with mental health? And, you know, man, it's everything. I mean, it is freaking everything. I had a client a few months ago, you know, he brought up the idea to me about, you know, getting involved in buying like a recovery house of sorts and bringing more exercise and wellness into recovery, whether it be drug addiction, you know, substance abuse of any kind, homelessness, where people have had mental issues and are, you know, without houses, I'd like to say. I heard that today. Let's not call it homeless, because there's such a stereotype to that. You know, there's a lot of people who have had some really bad luck and they end up without a house, you know. And there's a lot of mental health issues going on out there. There, you know, our veterans come back from foreign wars, and in my opinion, they don't get nearly enough help. And, you know, we were kicking around the idea about exercise, and, you know, it's absolutely been proven 100% that active people, you know, so for the long term, active people are less anxious and less depressed and have a better outlook on life. For the short term, exercise raises serotonin and dopamine, which makes you feel better. So you can be in a bad mood and go exercise and be in a good mood. That's absolutely fact. And when you start seeing results, you're absolutely going to feel better about yourself. So there's no question that there's a direct correlation. Now, I would love to see, you know, somehow, some way we're able to get this more into recovery processes, but I think we all know that right now, with the way mental health is and all being billed through insurance, it's all basically being handled with pharmacology and all that, and there's no question pharmacology is needed, but man, exercise is absolutely needed too. There was this great study I've seen, and I used to teach it when I taught sports psychology. And basically they looked at clinically depressed individuals, and one group of clinically depressed people did talk therapy only. Another group did medication only. Another group did exercise only. And then, of course, they had their control group. So then they combined these groups. First off, they found out that everybody felt better. So regardless of which modality they chose or were put into, talk therapy, medication, or exercise, each group got better. So that showed that taking some form of therapy was obviously better than not. But then when they advanced the studies and combined things, they found that regarding clinical depression, that the group that did absolutely the best was the group that did all three. That talk therapy was implemented into their program, along with some form of medication, and then a daily routine or regular exercise. Those people did the absolute best. So they found that people that exercise on psychotropic medications have a far greater effect from their psychotropic medications than those people that don't. And regarding talk therapy, that's just a given, meaning that they didn't pull that one out by itself, because you kind of have to be going to somebody to talk to get those medications. That's the rule anyway. So yeah, it absolutely works. And studies on anxiety have shown the same thing, the same benefits. And look, for me, I've been pretty fit most of my adult life. I've achieved different things. I mean, I'd say my biggest goals now, process goals, is to just feel better in that regard. Like I have a rule: don't send an email back, an angry email or have an angry conversation before I go do a workout. I mean, don't do it. It's like some people say, dude, do not go talk to them before you have a shot of whiskey. It probably wouldn't go well. It damn sure wouldn't go well if I did that. But anyway, so, for me, my rule is I'm being dead serious. I'm not clowning around. I've got to exercise first, or I know I'm going to say something so wrong that I'm going to regret it. Like I'm more irritable, I'm cranky, probably more aggressive. Not probably, definitely would be more aggressive, let me have this conversation before exercise. It's not going to go very well. Let's just say it most likely won't be a win-win. Let me go train. Let me think about this, because that's what I do when I train, and then I'll have the conversation. And you don't know how many times, like, I woke up stewing with something, whether it be an email I read or, an argument that wasn't worked out the day before or whatever, and I'll just be thinking about it, and man, I'll go to start a run or a bike or something or a swim or a lift, and I'll be like, man, I can't wait to say this because I'm going to say this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell them what's what. I'm sick of it. They're not going to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm going on and on and on. And like near the end of the run, I'm like going, man, I'm glad I didn't run into that person because I don't feel like saying any of that stuff anymore. Like, it just wasn't that big of a deal, man. I was overreacting. So I needed the exercise to change my brain chemistry, reset me back to normal, bring that cortisol level down, bring that dopamine back up. And then I'm going to have more of a rational conversation, and the email I was going to send goes right into the garbage pan. It's like, oh, there it goes. Bye-bye. Because it really brings me back to sense. And I'm like, thank God I didn't send it, So, there's no doubt for me that exercise helps me with my mental state. That was a great question. And then finally, Zachary asked about boots or Crocs when doing a metabolic workout. But okay, my little man he's not too little. He's pretty jacked actually. But old Zachary shows up last night for his workout. Did he know it was going to be a metabolic workout? No, I typically try not to tell too many people what's going to be up. Metabolic means fast-paced. The goal is to more get the heart rate high and stuff. So I had one planned out. Man, it was this really good workout written out, and here he comes in his Crocs. I'm like, are you freaking serious? Now, if it would have been anybody else, I'd have just switched the workout. I'd have been like, you can't do that. I mean, I was doing some jumps. How the hell do you jump in Crocs? Well, I wish I videoed it. He did. So the bottom line is we did the same workout, and it's really pretty funny, and you're wondering what the hell does this have to do with the podcast? Not a lot. It's humorous, but it does have a little something to do with it, because you talk about motivation. You talk about a guy that works really, really hard. He's in his 20s, but he's helped take over one of his dad's companies, and he's one of the bosses there, if not the boss besides his dad. Got a lot of responsibilities, but I tell you what, he don't miss his workouts. When he misses it, he's had COVID and he traveled. I mean, motivation for him is very, very high, and he always tells me that one of his highlights of the week is coming to the gym is 2 or 3 times a week. So why? Because it makes him feel so much better about himself. So the reality is, I don't give a damn if you show up in Crocs, cowboy boots, work boots. Just freaking show up and have this kind of work ethic this kid has. Because let me tell you, telling a little story on him, but I'm sure he would tell it. He got pretty damn obese in college, and for him that was unacceptable because he was an athlete in high school. He remained an athlete in college. He just put on a lot of weight, like 50 or 60 pounds, just from, having some athletics, no longer doing the athletics that he loved to do, and, getting into college and, doing what we all do. And when he graduated, he realized he's going to do something about it. And this is a kid in his 20s with a great vision. And he is now down. At his lowest, I think he was like just over 170 pounds, and he was at one point around 260. So he looks phenomenal. He works hard, and it don't matter what he's wearing. He's going to show up and give you 110%. So I love that. It's a funny question, a great way to end it. So speaking of ending it, so there's no way I can put on a podcast without sponsors. So Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of Gilden Group Realty Pros, they're awesome. They're sponsoring this podcast, and I can't thank them enough. And they're in the health and fitness, and they work out, and they they do all the stuff they're supposed to do, and they have the best 5-star reviews in the area. They've sold millions of houses, literally. And in a time where everybody's, looking for houses, buying houses, it's crazy. But they've been doing this a long time. I see a lot of different agents popping in. Gosh, they're literally, my house is on the market and I was getting bothered. I still am. I still get text messages from real estate agents I've never met before because they're jumping into the game because the market is so hot, and it really frustrates the good real estate agents out there. But they're saying, we saw you no longer have your house for sale. We just like to know, did something not meet your needs? I'm like, no, like, leave me alone. So the point is, like, when you get people like the Gildens, Gilden Group Realty, who have been doing this a long time, they did it long before we saw these hot times, meaning they saw it when it was normal, then they're the people you want, not the people that are, flash in the pan. I mean, they're out there, I hate to say it, but they're like, ambulance drivers now. They're just, what do you call them? Ambulance chasers, sorry, flying behind, just trying to look and pick up customers, not people like the Gildens. And I really appreciate it. If you need to reach them, please visit thegildengroup.com. That's Gilden, Gildon, group.com. They're the best. Thank you, guys. And until next time, stay max fit and stay max well.